What's happening, sports fans? Christian Pedersen, Aaron Bergen. We are here to talk about the semifinals. That's nice. That feel good? That feel good? That feel good here? That feel good there?
It is almost over, man.
It's on like Donkey Kong is still a relevant reference no matter what the generation is. That's where we're at right now. We've got the open division for basketball. We've got Cathedral. We got Francis Parker.
Rematch.
We got Torrey. We got Saints.
Rematch.
So let's break those rematches down.
Well, in the first one, I'm picking Cathedral Catholic. I've been I've been a supporter of theirs this year. I picked them as my preseason number one, so no need to change that this late in the game. So I'm gonna pick Cathedral to get by Parker, and then Saints versus Torrey. I think I'm gonna pick Torrey Pines in this one. Yeah, I think so. Torrey Pines kind of obliterated my prediction that that Torrey would win a close one against Poway. Almost won that one by they're up by 30 at one point, ran away with it. Torrey's playing excellent basketball, peaking at the right time as a program and as a team, which shouldn't come as a surprise with John Olive. So I'm going to go with the Battle of Del Mar Heights as my championship game.
I mean, Torrey Pines being back in the finals after last year's performance seems like a fitting exclamation point to their season, but you really get the sense that there's Torrey, Saints, Cathedral on one side of the basketball stylistic conversation and Parker on the other side of the basketball stylistic conversation, just given the four teams that are available here. So Aaron, while I call up the Division I brackets, speak a little bit about, in football, we pay so much attention in the playoffs. It's hard to beat a team the second time. It's hard to beat a team a third time. In basketball, I personally don't think that it matters all that much. I think that it's more just about how you physically match up with a team, whether or not you're ever going to be able to find a way to actually, get over that hump. So debunk that, talk about that a little bit, just, kind of filibuster while I bring up the D1 brackets.
I mean, I think that to a certain degree, it is really difficult to, beat a team, more than twice in a season, just because you've scouted one another. And by that point, both teams know each other's strengths and weaknesses almost to the point where you can just predict what plays they're going to be running. I think that in the second game, Parker knows what they have to do in order to get over the hump. Obviously, the last game they played was one of the first games of the season. It was Parker's first game of the year, and we've talked about that game before. Parker tied the game with 30 seconds left, had a chance to win the game, and lost in the last seconds. And we all thought that was kind of just a one-off game, and it turns out that Parker, turned out to be the truth.
I'll remind everybody. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, they defied all our predictions. I looked at my list of top 30 teams, and I think I had them going third to start the season. So that was a little off.
I'll also remind everybody that last year Cathedral and Francis Parker was the Division I championship. So
it came down to an offensive rebound putback, and that's where I'm hanging my hat with Cathedral. I do believe that even if you play a team 2 or 3 times, the basic principles of the matchup still apply. And the basic principles of this matchup is Cathedral has a ton of size, Francis Parker doesn't.
Aaron, now we got the Division I bracket next to you. Santa Fe Christian and San Marcos, the 1 and the 4 seed, they're going to be taking on one another in the semifinals. El Camino and Carlsbad. So no matter what, the Division I championship is headed to the North County. Speak a little bit about what you see here in your crystal ball.
I see Santa Fe Christian getting a very toughly contested win over San Marcos. Kudos to San Marcos for really turning things around in the playoffs. I mean, they backed into the playoffs. They weren't playing great basketball. Sources tell me that they had one of those players only meetings or team meetings, and really got everybody on the same page moving into the postseason, and it shows. I mean, they were able to handily take care of Helix on their home floor. I think Santa Fe Christian brings a different dynamic to the table, not as athletic per se as a Helix team, but much more disciplined and much more offensive weaponry. And to be honest with you, Santa Fe has the most underrated coach in the county. We're all Chad Bickley fans, so I'm going with SFC in that one. The second game is going to be a little tougher to predict just because Carlsbad is very good at home. El Camino has done most of its damage this year at on their de facto home court at Army Navy. Uh, but I think the big thing is, we've heard whispers that Caleb Nelson, might have re-injured himself, and if he doesn't play, then I think El Camino definitely has a really good opportunity to sneak one on the road. Uh, what a cool game to have in the postseason. These two teams haven't played in the postseason since 2004, so it's been a long time coming. Right down the street from one another in terms of being Oceanside and Carlsbad. Uh, if Nelson's able to give it a go, I'd give the nod to San Marcos. If he's not, I mean, that's how pivotal of a piece he is to the whole equation. Without him, it puts a lot of pressure on Jalen Nelson to produce a lot of points, and he's done it to against a lot of opponents this year, but not against multiple backcourt defenders who are of high levels, Galve Love and Tyson Robinson. So I'm gonna, that one's a hard one to pick, but it really does come down to if Caleb Nelson trots out on the court, it's going to be Carlsbad. If he doesn't, it's going to be El Camino.
We got the Division II brackets next to you. Let's start with that Orange Glen and University City, the 8 and the 5. That's fun to say out loud.
That's just so crazy to me. I mean, University City getting a home game as a 5 seed in the semifinals. That's off the charts. Um, I think UC has the advantage in this one simply because um, Frankie Frankie's a much more athletic big than any of the bigs that Orange Glen has faced coming into this round. They did a good job against Tyler Morris, but again, Point Loma took them to a 3-point game at Orange Land. This game is at UC. UC has one of the more underrated atmospheres in San Diego in terms of their basketball crowd. I mean, it gets rowdy in there. It's a smallish gym. Their fans are really hungry to get over the hump. Last year they made it to the Division III quarterfinals. This year, step closer and a division higher. I think they get it done. On the other side of the bracket, obviously, we talk about this all the time. I tend to abstain from making selections between, in games that my son's involved in. But you got the 2 seed San Diego and the 14 seed Canyon Crest. So almost as crazy of a semifinal pairing as the one we just talked about. Kudos to Canyon Crest. Again, I think sometimes when you play in these really crazy divisions and you're one of the lower teams, you tend to look at opponents that aren't in those divisions and just say, you know what? I've seen the very best competition. You don't scare me at all. And I think Canyon Crest has come in with that attitude of, you know, we've 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 touched swords, with Carlsbad, Torrey Pines, La Costa Canyon, all in San Marcos. There's nothing here that we haven't seen, and that attitude has gotten them, to the win over Army Navy and the big win by 1 point over Scripps Ranch at Scripps Ranch. San Diego, on the other hand, has ridden the energy of its home court into very close games. The Del Norte game actually was tied going into the fourth quarter, and Del Norte briefly took a 3-point lead at the beginning of the fourth quarter and had a 2-point lead in the middle of the fourth quarter before for the Cavers were able to seal the game with some really key plays down the stretch. So they're going to need that crowd to give them that energy once more. And I think the big thing will be, you know, will San Diego shooters show up? Because Canyon Crest shooters are going to be there. Justin Lamb has been an underrated performer all year for Canyon Crest, and he's been knocking down shots. Frank Gelfman's one of the better individual defenders in San Diego County, and they've got some other guys who will knock down shots from the perimeter. So it will be up to San Diego's guards to be able to match their production. And I think for Canyon Crest, you have to deal with one of the better defensive centers in San Diego and Tyler Castillo, who was just named to the All-League second team. So the cross matchups again are going to be very intriguing, and I think it's going to be a great game.
Well, if nothing else, it just seems like the gods of basketball have deemed that this particular playoff bracket is just going to be nonsense anyway. So we might have all of our punditry end up just being for naught. We
could have a 14-8 championship game, and I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I mean, or we could just wind up with, quadruple overtime, and San Diego beats Canyon Crest still only 51 to 48. Like, nothing makes sense necessarily this year in some of these brackets. Some of these brackets go perfectly. Some of them go absolutely haywire. Let me call up the Division III brackets. This one technically still makes sense academically because it's one of the cleaner looking ones, and that's got us with number 1 San Ysidro, number 5 Granite Hills, after Granite moves on with a buzzer beater, and then number 2 Coronado plays host to number 3 Eastlake in a sneaky I'll say that the wording Eastlake versus Coronado in a semi, it sounds like the CIF seeding is working and they're getting new teams into this conversation every single year. So let's start with that San Ysidro Granite matchup. Does Granite have any magic pixie dust left in that bag?
It's going to be tough for them. Getting by a 13 seed Hoover by 1 point. And something I did not know about Hoover's run in the playoffs. Wayne Hampton, who was their star guard for most of the year, tore his ACL right on the eve of the playoffs. So they've been doing this without their best player this whole year in the lineup. That was very impressive. And it also, gives me pause about Granite Hill's chances coming into this game. If they could barely squeak by that Hoover team at home, playing at San Ysidro is going to be a very daunting challenge, and I just don't think they're up to it this season. So I'm going to go with San Ysidro for the obvious reasons of, their star power and their firepower and the Rockets' home environment.
Well, then let's talk about the other side of that bracket with number 3 Eastlake traveling out to the island to take on number 2 Coronado.
This is probably going to be the best game on the schedule tomorrow in the division of all the games that are being contested tomorrow. This is the epitome of a toss-up. Eastlake and Coronado have two very different styles. Eastlake is very guard-heavy with one superior athlete on the wing who's their de facto big, Alex Crawford. Coronado has one very transcendent talent in Wayne McKinney, a solid shooter in Mike Cunningham, and a 6'9" big whose name always escapes me when I need to know it. I can't stand when that happens. But I don't know. I mean, this is gonna be one of those hard ones. I'm probably gonna pick Coronado simply because of the home court advantage. And when Coronado's a lazy, has a laid back type of feel to it. When you're there, but those fans can get up for a big game. A couple of seasons ago, I went to the Point Loma Coronado game at Coronado. There wasn't a seat in the house. I mean, I had to stand up.
Yeah, the Point Loma Coronado rivalry is a very misunderstood hidden gem here in San Diego. Let's move down to the Division 4 brackets. Number 1 Calexico plays host to number 5 Central. in an all Imperial Valley battle. Calexico, the number 1 seed, going to finally have a challenge, or are they going to move on
They're
comfortably?
going to be challenged, but I'm going to pick Calexico. I think that's going to be an overtime game,
Oh,
decided 3 to 5 points.
the winner of that game will take on the winner of O'Farrell and El Cap. O'Farrell, like we mentioned in the last game, in the last round, they're in that proving stage of, are they a program, and what type of, are they able to climb that ladder? So they are one step away from getting back to a championship. Do you see that happening, or are we going to get the number 6 seed, the lowest one remaining in this bracket, into a final?
I'm going to pick El Cap in this one. Bigger school. Um, Jacob Fitzner is probably going to be the best scorer on the floor for for both teams with El Cap, and I see them being able to have a little bit of a size advantage and just having that alpha in Fitzner. I kind of, at the beginning of the year, El Cap was my pick to win Division Four. Um, but they were beset with a lot of issues this year. But they seem to be gelling at the right time, and they've kind of had their way with their opponents thus far in the postseason. So I'm going to pick El Cap. So we're gonna have a East County versus East County.
I believe this is a possible reference for a movie of You East Coast, I Far East Coast. But none of that is generationally appropriate, because I had Mar Vista on the show earlier today saying that the mid '90s counted as as throwback. So yeah, we're all throwback now. Aaron, D5, we've talked nothing. We've basically talked exclusively Fallbrook. Then this is more or less their division to win. They're going to be taking on Classical Academy. Potentially a tough game. Everything's a trap game. Everything's hard. Everything's a challenge. But
well, I mean, I think it would have been a trap game if they didn't play earlier in the year and Classical Academy didn't beat them. Classical Academy has the advantage of knowing that they've already beaten Fallbrook once. Fallbrook, on the other hand, has motivation. Okay, we need to prove that loss was a fluke, and that we have grown since then. If you look at their track record since that loss to Classical Academy, they haven't lost a game to a team that they shouldn't have lost to. So I'm going to say the Fallbrook gets its act together and wins decisively
oh,
in their semifinal game.
one overtime call, one decisive call, one game left to go on all the playoffs, and that is Calvin Christian traveling to take on Mar Vista. We spoke with them earlier today. They were talking about how they feel like this is a culture change 101. New coaching staff comes in, the results are there, they finally get home playoff games, yada, yada, yada. It seems like it's a feel-good story. Is it a team that's the real deal, though? Will we see them in the finals?
I think so. If Luke Bonds was suiting up for Calvin Christian, I would say this is going to be one of those games that will be a big toss-up. But losing him, you lose, 15 to 20 points a game, the team's best shooter, and their primary or secondary ball handler, depending on the situation. Mar Vista has guards to spare on that team. The freshmen on that team, Josiah Scott and Jeffrey Timko, have been superb for them at this level. And they're going to be able to pressure and turn over Calvin Christian's guards, which in turn will make it difficult for them to get the ball into their stud, Martin Gumwell, the freshman. But I got to lean on the fact that, you're playing, they got to drive all the way down to South Bay. Mar Vista is re-energized as a program. Yeah, Scott Reed has hit the nail on the head. There's been a culture shift there. This is, obviously some of it is, the fact that they've sunken so far as a program that now they're in Division 5 and there's nowhere to go but up. But they have been very emphatic in their trajectory this year. So I don't think that changes. I'm picking Mar Vista versus Fallbrook, which I picked early in the season as my championship game.
So now you're just showing off that you know more about basketball than the rest of us combined when you're opining about having already called this championship game. His name is Aaron Nostradamus, and he has predicted all of this in his ancient tales. Now, Aaron Bergen, Full-Time Hoops 1, he is the oracle of San Diego high school sports.
I am no oracle. I'm just a guy who likes to go to basketball games.
Okay, well, look, I'm shooting about 3.5% on my career predictions, so everyone looks like an oracle and looks like they know what they're talking about compared to me. Aaron, we're hoping to have you in studio later this week for a finals edition one. All I'm going to say is come ready, come dressed, get the fit,
and booted, okay?
Okay, deal. Respect the finals, man, because I'll be here dressed up. Aaron will be dressed up. Bodie will have his weirdly on-point shoe game going, all that kind of stuff. We'll be back with you later this week for our finals edition. Until then, sports fans, please go enjoy a bunch of these games. We'll have links to where and how you can check all of these out. We know you got a ton of options, but we hope that we have helped enlighten you as to which one you will make come game time. Aaron, thank you very much. Enjoy your experience watching the Cavers play, and we will be saying prayers for you and your emotional state.